Okay, in the second part of section 1.7, we will cover some additional examples. Let's find the sine, cosine, tangent of 180 degrees. Step one is to sketch 180 degrees. This is 90 and 90, so 180 will be this angle here, which basically is a straight line. Because this is a quadrantal angle, we are going to look for a point uh, on the unit circle for 180 degrees. So this point is going to be the point -1, comma 0. The x value here is -1. We go left. We don't go up or down, so it'll be -1, 0. And because this is on the unit circle, we're always going to go 1 unit in either direction. Okay, so the x value is -1 and the y value is 0. So let's start with the cosine. The cosine of x is the x value that's -1. The sine of, not x, I'm sorry. The cosine of 180 degrees is going to be the x value, which is -1. The sine of 180 degrees is the y value, which is 0. And the tangent of 180 degrees is going to be y over x, which is 0 over -1, which is going to be 0. So remember, for quadrantal angles, our points are going to be -1, 0. This point here would be 0, 1. This point here would be 0, -1, and this point here would be 1, 0. So please keep those in mind. The quadrantal angles are going to be 0, 90, 180, and then 270, and then back to 360. Okay, let's take 1290. Anytime you have an angle that is not between 0 and 360, so our angle has to be between 0 and 360. If it's not between 0 and 360, then we need to find a coterminal angle that is between 0 and 360, like we did in section 1.5. So we're going to take 1290, and we are going to keep subtracting 360 until we get to a coterminal angle for 1290. Okay, so let's take 1290 and subtract 360 from that. So 1290 minus 360, that's going to be 930. But we got to be between 0 and 360. So let's subtract 360 again. And if we do that, this will give you 570. Okay, let's subtract 360 again. And this will give you 210. Now 210 is between 0 and 360, so we're done. 210 is going to be a coterminal angle with 1290 degrees. Let's sketch 210. So we start with the initial side. We have 90, and 90 is 180, and 180 plus 30 is going to be 210. So when we draw our reference triangle, or reference angle, it's going to be with the terminal side and always the x-axis, always go up to the x-axis. So our theta prime is going to be 30 degrees. So you got to think back to your unit circle, and you have to ask yourself, which point is associated with 30 degrees? Now remember, I told you to memorize that 30 and 3 are associated with each other. So for 30, the point's going to be radical 3 over 2, comma 1/2. Okay, so for 30 degrees, this point is going to be radical 3 over 2, comma 1/2. But the x and y values are both negative, so it'll be negative radical 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. So let's go ahead and find all the sine, cosine, tangent. So sine of 1290 is the y value, which is negative 1/2. Cosine of 1290 is the x value, which is negative radical 3 over 2. And the tangent of 1290 is going to be the y value, so take the numerator, and the x value, so that's going to be -1 over negative radical 3. Now a negative over negative is a positive, and if you rationalize this, this gives you a positive radical 3 over 3 as the tangent. Lastly, we have -135 degrees, so we start with the x-axis. That's our initial side. This is -90, and to get to 145, we have to go -45 degrees more. Remember that our reference angle is always going to be with the terminal side and the x-axis. So if this is 45, then our reference angle theta prime will be 45. Now for 45, our ratios are going to be radical 2 over 2, comma radical 2 over 2. Okay, that's our ordered pair on the unit circle. But because we're going in the negative direction for both x and y, that'll be negative radical 2 over 2 and negative radical 2 over 2. So the sine of negative 135 is going to be the y value, that's negative radical 2 over 2. The cosine of negative 135 is going to be the x value, which is also negative radical 2 over 2. And the tangent of negative 135 is going to be y over x. So the numerator of the y is negative radical 2. The numerator of the x is also negative radical 2. We divide that and we get 1 as the answer. Okay, let's take a look at another example. We have the cosecant of negative 1350. So negative 1350 is not between 0 and 360. So our first goal is going to be to find a coterminal angle that's between 0 and 360. So if we take negative 1350 and add 360 to it, this gives us negative 990. Take negative 990 and add 360 to it, this gives us negative 630. Take negative 630 and add 360 to it, this gives us a negative 270. But remember, we have to be between 0 and 360, so we got to add 360 again. And if we do that, then we're going to end up with 90 degrees. So the coterminal angle to negative 1350 is going to be 90 degrees. So let's sketch 90 degrees. This is 0. This is 90. And the point on the unit circle for 90 degrees is going to be the point 0, 1. The x is 0, the y is 1. Okay, so now let's find sine, cosine, tangent. Sine of negative 1350 is the y value, which is 1. Cosine of negative 1350 is the x value, which is 0. And then the tangent of negative 1350 is going to be the y over x. Now 1 over 0, you can't divide by 0, so that's going to be undefined. Okay, the tangent is undefined at negative 1350. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to actually not do anything because these two we will do in class. All right, lastly, find the terminal point xy on the unit circle determined by the angle in the given degrees. So let's do this quickly. For 180, we have 0. This is 90 and 90. This is 180. So this is our angle. And on the unit circle, this point has an x value of negative 1 and a y value of 0. So the point P is just going to be negative 1, 0. This is easy. We don't have to find sine, cosine, tangent. We just have to find the point. Negative 60 degrees. So negative, remember, it means we're going to go in the clockwise direction. So this is going to be negative 60 degrees. And the reference angle is always going to be with the terminal side and the x-axis. Okay, it's always with the terminal side and the x-axis. So our theta prime is going to be negative 60 degrees. All right, so for negative 60 degrees, we have to label this point. And remember, 30 is associated with radical 3. So the x value for 30 is going to be radical 3 over 2. So, but for 60, we flip that. So it's going to be 1/2 and radical 3 over 2. But the x value is positive and the y value is negative. So the y value is going to be negative radical 3 over 2. And then that's going to be our point P. Lastly, we got 135. So this is going to be 90 degrees. This is 0. This is 90. And 90 and 45 is going to give us a 135. It's 135 degrees. We want to find the reference angle. So the reference angle here is given by the terminal side and the x-axis. So our reference angle theta prime is going to be 45 degrees. Now this point up here is going to be radical 2 over 2, comma radical 2 over 2, because that's the point associated with 45 degrees. However, The x value is negative, so it's going to be negative, and the y value is positive, so the y value will be positive. So our point P is going to be negative radical 2 over 2, comma, radical 2 over 2. Okay, I hope this makes sense. If not, that's what the class lecture is for, and I'll be happy to go over any questions you have. Just make sure you think of questions before you come to class.